Commission is now in session. Roll call, please.
David Reed.
Here.
John Hutchins. Here. John Betts. Here. Richard Rosser.
Present.
Lee Phillips.
Here.
Gerald Woods.
Here.
Rick Lawrence. Here. Michael Parker. Here. George Larger. I'm here. Michael Flower.
Here.
Okay, before I ask for a motion for the minutes, is there any additions, deletions, or corrections that need to be made to the September 3rd, 2025 special meeting?
Mr. Chair, if there's no other corrections, I move that they were be approved as submitted.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No old business, new business. Mason County Physical Court Resolution number 2518.
Okay, so you all have a copy of the Mason County Fiscal Court Resolution 2518 that basically was written and passed to set off the process for regulating data centers. So you all won't be tasked with writing anything. This was just passed in order to demonstrate, I think, to the public that the process of regulating them is beginning, and to let you know that this was coming, because this was a big issue at the public hearing last month, and so that's basically what it is. Y'all have any questions about it?
Is there a general timeline on that?
So technically,
It's coming, but
So technically, no timeline has started yet, but there is a 60-day timer that starts once the Planning Commission receives a text amendment, zoning text amendment proposal from one of the legislative bodies. I don't know that 60 days is sufficient to actually do this process. I think we're going to attempt to get it mostly within those 60 days, but also you all will be given the time to do what's necessary to do your review, hold the public hearing, take in what the public has said, and then tweak it if necessary. So no timeline, no timer has started yet. This was just basically a preliminary notification that this process is going to start.
But I think the hope is that we get this done sooner rather than later.
in section 4, it talks about the judge has authorized the fiscal court to provide independent data and expert witnesses to consultants. Those have all been, this body will not have a choice on those independent consultants or those providers. That's all kind of being looked at.
I think that if this body wants to request someone in particular, they can. I don't know that there are specific proposals on that. I think that's all going to be part of the process.
Yeah, I agree.
So the fiscal court is going to write the amendment. Is that who's writing the amendment, or is it along with staff, or how does?
I think that the county attorney's office, George and I will be collaborating on a draft regulation,
Gotcha. Okay.
much like we did with solar energy systems. And we'll have a big public hearing about that proposed text amendment.
Okay.
And we hope to get that done soon.
And then at the public hearing, we hear feedback, and then it comes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, and you all will make a recommendation after you're satisfied. And we're hoping to get something authored so that you all will get it in advance of the next meeting, which is the 5th of November.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you all have to immediately schedule a public hearing, but I think that we would like to address this. I mean, it's a hot topic, and I think most of the people in here are here because of that topic, and there's no getting around it. We're going to have a public hearing and let the public weigh in on data centers, and we're going to proposed text amendment to regulate data centers, and that will be publicized. It'll be disseminated in the ways that we disseminate these things. Everyone will have a chance to look at it, and we will probably suggest that you all enact some kind of set of hearing procedures, much like we did with solar, to accommodate as much comment as we can, but not have all of us out there nights on end for hours and hours and hours. You all might consider allowing written comment again, much like we did with solar. But that's what's coming down the pike.
And we're going to try to have a good draft that's as robust as possible, but it doesn't have to be in a perfect form for you all to pass a motion to hold a public hearing. In fact, that's part of it, is you're inviting the public to come in and critique it and say, okay, we'd like to see this change, we'd like you to add this, we'd like you to take this out. So there are going to be changes to it, so don't think that it needs to be absolutely perfect when you see it and when you digest it the first time. You pass a motion to hold the public hearing. And you all don't need to choose the time, date, and venue of the public hearing. That'll be something that staff and the county will take care of. And we're looking at basically doing the same thing with solar energy systems and having it at the Fields Auditorium. There needs to be scheduling for that. Again, like as Michael said, we'll have procedures. People can do written submissions, and as I recall, it was almost 4 years ago.
Well, that's what we did. That doesn't mean that you all have to agree to do it this way next time, but it seemed to work well. But it's your all's hearing, and it's your all's prerogative to set rules for the orderliness of that hearing.
And with this proposal, we'll probably do some suggested rules. For example, one of them specifically, I remember, if you have a written submission, it's limited to 10 pages, because otherwise people would submit like a book, of lots and lots of information. And that's a bit much for you all for submission to actually go through and digest. A lot of that information can be, if you can't put the information you want to convey to you all in less than 10 pages, I don't know what to tell you. Do you have any other questions?
When will we hear from experts?
I would say it's public hearing,
Public hearing.
because the experts will be giving testimony.
We'll be able to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. You have to be able to. That's what public hearings are for. You're supposed to be able to process it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You will provide us any information ahead of time? Because I think it's all new to us too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been looking on the internet, reading about it, but there's a whole lot to consume there.
We should have enough time to provide you with some information about how to open public hearing. So are you all looking? What are you all looking for specifically, or you don't have an idea of what you want?
No, I don't have an idea.
Okay.
I would like to have whatever you're going to submit, say by October 29th, so we've got a week to look at it and delve through it before that meeting. That gives you guys 4 solid weeks to put it together.
Well,
It's a framework or something.
so remember, I know only I think two current members of the Planning Commission were around for the solar energy system stuff. I think the focus is going to be writing the draft ordinance. And then you all, after you get the public comments, you all are going to be reviewing all that stuff. So that might be the best time for you guys to get information, because any experts that are consulted will be giving you a lot of this information, and you can ask questions too.
And there's nothing that says that all this has to be done in one set of public hearings. As I recall with solar energy systems, we had a separate public hearing for the sole purpose of hearing testimony from Troy Craycraft.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
correct.
And, you all may want to approach having potential experts provide evidence that way. that might be a bit more unwieldy in terms of making them subject to cross-examination by members of the public, but, I mean,
I think what Rick was referring to is rather than waiting for the first public hearing to hear some of those expert witnesses, to have something that you can read ahead of time, start preparing Q&A session on our end.
well, I think the issue with that is that theoretically, any evidence you all are going to receive is in the context of a public hearing. The findings of fact have to be based upon things that are received in public hearing.
And you might not have an idea of what information you're looking for until after. Does that make sense? After you've heard a lot of, you might a citizen or a group might, say, what about this? And then you all might have questions about, whatever that might be. Does that make sense?
So question for you. These experts, per se, the experts in what? Environment, the data center, where are the experts in? Or what can we expect?
I don't know that we've determined that yet. So we're still, this resolution is the kickoff of this. Nobody's gone down that rabbit hole. But so, somebody who knows something about these, because unlike with solar energy systems, when we tackled it, I just got contacted by another county that was asking about ours because they haven't even addressed this topic yet. It's still relatively new. Data centers have been around for a while, so there have to be experts out there who know what to expect with these. Some third party that has no dog in this fight who can just make some sort of presentation and answer your all's question. But who that is, I don't know that yet.
So, excuse me, Mr. Chair, if I may. I think the idea was always trying to serve taxpayers, and the point we tried to make was that the commissioners and myself felt the project had matured enough that it was time to put in a little bit of work to evaluate what those barriers that I mentioned in my letter to the newspaper, the barriers that this project would have to overcome to come in this community. At the time, I estimated at fiscal court it'd be a $40,000 to $50,000 proposition for consultants, for experts with travel, things like that. I think it is important that they meet 3 parameters. One, they have worked with the siting and zoning of a technology campus or data center somewhere in the United States. In Kentucky, you won't find it because, there isn't a private one, like is looking here. I think, they have to be able to serve as a best practice resource that not only they can state to you there at the meeting, like here's what they do in Phoenix, Arizona, here's what a normal setback is in Phoenix, Arizona, here's what a normal height restriction is in Ohio, again, that they have experience, with these topics. And lastly, can't be currently working with this current project, you know what I mean? And so, I think you were talking in terms of engineering, architect firms, legal firms, but it ain't that deep of a field, But look, at the county, we've grown our reserves like $30,000 because the commissioners and I are rather stingy. And so ultimately, we tried to hold back until the project seemed a little bit more on firm footing. Now, that our confidence is growing, that we're approaching that point, it's important that you guys have the resources that you need to make educated decisions. Also, to the point that that Mr. Clark was stating, they'll just provide you guys the initial framework. And so, you can rip that text amendment up and go a completely different direction. But luckily, we have had, issues like this come before the board. That is the regulation of an unseen industry before, in the form of the wind blades, the turbine, the solar panels, and that this. And so try to follow that. Sorry.
Any other questions for him?
I have a question for consideration, if you may.
Okay.
I know Rick and Michael, you mentioned having some material to review prior to, I'm thinking the public hearing. After the public hearing is triggered by motion, you could have a deadline for a first phase of written comments, which would then give you the opportunity to review written material prior to the in-person public hearing. Correct?
I think if the commission wanted to go about it that way, they could. I don't know that receiving written comment is especially typical in these kinds of situations. I think solar situation was kind of an anomaly due to we were still somewhat in the coronavirus haze at that point, and so I think there was some legitimate concern that there would be people from the public who wanted to submit written comment because they weren't especially interested in coming to a large public hearing. But at the same time, I think if the commission wants to structure it that way, they'd be within their abilities. And I think, sure, and I think that there's a certain logic in allowing written comment. The one negative being that it's not readily available to other people who'd like to comment on the comment. Whereas when everyone's taking turns waiting in line to have their say, so to speak, at the public hearing, they can refer back to things that people have already said. Whereas with written comment, it's all submitted and then it all comes to light later. So, there's pluses and minuses there, but I think the commission can proceed how they want in that respect, and that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, a written wouldn't wouldn't superimpose the in-person, but it would rather be an augmentation.
Sure, supplement, yeah.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it have to be submitted during the public hearing?
Depends on the phase of the public hearing. The public hearing could be a length of time for written comment, and then you have a date for the public comment.
I think that, didn't we allow
Yeah, but I mean, that's another drawback of written comment is that, you're limited to 3 minutes after public hearing, but then unless we put limits to how much, because there were people who wanted to submit thick sheet of stuff. I think you did that. I mean, there were a lot of people who submitted their stuff in person.
Right.
I think we did. I mean, it wasn't part of the public hearing, but you could submit something and then we could admit it into the record, I think, during the public hearing.
Yeah.
But it needs to be part of the record.
I think we adopted it into the record at the subsequent meeting, as I recall.
I recall that too.
And then they got a chance to see it all after the fact when they were deliberating on it. Because I remember sending out packets that were so thick they had the standard envelopes barely contained them. It was an expensive postal bill.
Right, because I think the commission had to determine what if the written comment they were going to accept. Some of the written comments being notarized authorized and we had to get verifications after the fact as to comments that were made at the second night of the public hearing. But it's all grist for the mill and things for you all to think about and how you want to do this.
And we can talk about that at the next meeting, assuming you all pass a motion to hold the public hearing. And we can talk about procedure and all that kind of stuff. And we'll probably have, like I said, proposals written up, recommended proposals for doing that based on our experience 4 years ago. Any questions?
I'm sure we'll have some.
Yep.
Good.
So there's no other activity we need to take now on that?
Nope, you guys are pretty much just twiddling your thumbs until we get something written to you, a proposal.
We were going to have to consider a text amendment.
I think you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I know what that.
But I don't think there's anything the commission needs to affirmatively do until you all have a draft and you determine how you want to proceed.
So we're essentially we're in the considering phase right now because we're internalizing it. And
Yeah, there's really nothing for you all to do until you get it.
fair enough.
Because normally I write the proposals on your behalf, and they're very simple until
But ideally, you're going to have a proposed text amendment to consider at the next meeting. Doesn't mean you need to charge forward and schedule a public hearing, but that's the objective.
Yeah.
Okay. Maysville, Mason County Comprehensive Plan Final Draft.
Okay, so you all have reviewed the minutes from the September 3rd special meeting, public hearing that we held. We had 3 submitted amendments, and there's also someone who attended the public hearing also had criticism that I addressed, and I did so in my staff report. Do you all have any questions about it?
I've had some time to dissect some of the information that was there, read through all of it intensely, and I do think that the majority of that, the content that evening was different place, different time. And I think it was reflected in that staff report.
Yeah, one of the reasons I chose to address the previous agenda item, the resolution, is that when that meeting was held and the public hearing was held, that resolution hadn't been passed. So there was no public knowledge of the process of getting for the data center zoning text amendment proposal, which we still don't have a proposal yet. But specifically the We Are Mason County request for amendment. I mean, that stuff is all regulatory stuff, and the best time to submit those is during the public hearing we have for regulating data center. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's not. There is. I mean, there is stuff with merit in there. It's just the comprehensive plan isn't the document that stuff to be put into. So there's that one, and there's 2 others. Do y'all have any specific questions? Let's see. I can talk about them. You guys can ask questions.
In reading through some of the comments and reading the plan once more, I do, I think you use the word, you don't want to straitjacket yourself into something that may even pop up 3 to 5 years now that we don't even know of now. You don't want to put yourself into a hole that you can't get out with your comp plan. I think there's some language in there about economic development. We want a strong balance for the economic development, and what we have. You know, I don't know if there's any additional language should be in there, any type of like, you know, any large scale agricultural, you know, we'd have to also consider resource audits or, you know, any type of caps or anything like that. What those caps were, is it under consideration?
I think that's addressed. And
I was trying to find it again in those bullet points.
well, strategy number 5 under 6A says restrict significant conversion of prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance to any other use beside agriculture. Yeah, and number 4 is planning commission should notify and solicit feedback from local agricultural businesses, extension, local, federal, and state agricultural officials before future land use decisions are made. You should consider a cap of existing farmland that can be entered into long-term leases or contracts that take the land out of its current productive.
That satisfies that too.
And actually, that was I think number 4 was actually the comment. I don't recall the name of the gentleman who brought it up, but he actually referenced the specific legislation, 2 pieces of legislation, one of which passed and one of which did not. Yes, it was. And I think in my staff report, I argued that just because you all notify and solicit feedback from those agencies and those groups doesn't mean you have to listen to it. Like, it doesn't, again, it doesn't straitjacket you. It just suggests that you ask those groups what they think about this. You know, they can show up to the public hearing or public hearings and express themselves, or they can submit something and it can become part of the record. So, you know, I don't necessarily think that has to be. And it even says consider a cap. That doesn't mean that you have to have one.
Correct.
It's just consideration. You know, again, as I said in my staff report, you know, the comprehensive plan is not supposed to be a straitjacket that keeps you from doing something that, you know, opportunities that arise, or that mandates you have to do something.
They're guiding principles.
Yes. They're like guidelines and land use priorities for the community all rolled into one. It's like the difference between should and must. Do you have any other questions? I think the only thing I said that I thought was, I'm not saying that any of these were bad ideas. I think there was one aspect, one line item from Mr. Shepix that not only did I think, you know, it's fine, but also it demonstrated that table 189 should be table 19. Because we did not have almost 200 tables in this. You caught a typo and you made a good suggestion. But I mean, it's what you guys want to do. If you disagree with me on any of his points, or Mr. Marshall's, or anything else, y'all think?
I think it's very reflective of all the meetings we attended and all the people we had an opportunity to. And it's a guideline. It's not an ordinance, it's a guideline for us. And I think moving forward, with a couple of the minor changes that you made, I think it's just fine.
Anybody else?
Discussion? You guys have a...
Can I ask a question about on page 67? About under 6A, strategies, number 1, talks about residential development. And so what does that constitute?
Probably subdivisions. And that's part of the reason for limitations on lot size. You don't want to have a bunch of 1 acre lots in areas, correct? Because that promotes residential development in areas that aren't necessarily serviced in a way to to promote residential development.
Right.
So it's not saying you can't build a house on your farm, or it's not saying that the commission should look to limit building homesteads on farm.
Regardless
It's-
of
but-
public water or sewer that's applied to multi-unit or subdivision plays, right?
Yeah, let's promote subdivisions in areas that have public water, public sewer.
Which we have we have two zoning classifications that are designed specifically for rural residential subdivisions. Rural residential 1 and rural residential 2. There's only a few places that's zoned that way, and the only one I can think of that doesn't have problems with utilities is right outside city limits. It's the Ford Farm, like Perry Place, that's right outside city limits, so it has ready access to it. Like Arthur Hills, out towards Germantown. I heard the story as to why it was never really developed is they couldn't get enough. I think the water pipes weren't sufficient to get to them, and that's why it's just now starting to be developed. But they had to change the size of the lot to service all the lots. So it's just basically saying we shouldn't have compact, dense development out where it would be difficult to service it with public water. Sewage isn't such a problem because the hard and fast rule for septic is 1 acre, and the minimum lot size of either RR1 or RR2 is 1 acre. But I think Maysville has been having quite a few problems with water. So they're having problems with water somewhere else that's a subdivision like that, certainly probably would.
George, in the last meeting, the decommissioning bonds were brought up. What do you, obviously, I just don't want it to be something that we forget later on. 'Cause I don't know if that's a common practice now. I just don't want, you see what the Brownings buildings have become, or some of these old windmills in other parts of the country that break down and they don't have any way of decommissioning them and getting rid of them. Is there any, I don't know, do you really know of any history of decommissioning bonds ever being issued? And do you think that would be something that maybe we should consider putting in the comprehensive plan as a guidance for us to maybe consider?
It's a best practice, and we have it in the solar energy system.
Okay, so that's something to look at.
Yeah, because it exists so that there's a bond in case
Right.
whoever owns it, they go out of business and they just let it sit there, and we have the money to remediate it and
Okay.
get that crap.
Right, for sure. Yeah, that's why I just was wondering, I don't know, is that something you think we should maybe include in here, in economic development or rural ag use, land use, or is it just something that maybe overstepping to the comprehensive plan?
I don't know that we have to get that specific.
Okay.
about it. It'll be a best practice for land uses like wind and solar.
Yes.
And I'm sure there will be discussion about it. It is mentioned in, I think, the We Are Mason County.
Yes, it is. That's what, I think Mrs. Garrison mentioned.
So that'll be something I'm sure they'll submit at the public hearing, whatever their submission is, whatever their, that's one of the many things that has some merit in there.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
So it's something I'm going to recommend that we have in. Now, I haven't researched data centers specifically enough to know what that would entail. It's pretty cut and dry with things like wind and solar. Get that equipment out, so it'll go back to farmland.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I was wondering that myself with, data centers and the large complexes and whatnot, but okay, that's fair enough.
So what do y'all want to do? Any other questions, any other issues?
Any questions? You wanna make a motion to accept?
I have a question.
Okay.
Also, in theme 6, under 6A, number 5, prime farmland always comes up in all these conversations. And so, does anybody know what prime farmland, or the definition of prime farmland is?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but the definition does exist. I think it's a federal definition from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And same with farmland of statewide importance. Prime farmlands are top, and farmland of statewide importance is your next rung down. And there's a map of, I don't know where it is, there's a map in here. And all the green represents, I think it's about 30.
One of the reasons I asked that, and Curtis will understand more about this than I do, is I looked at my soil maps last year where we farmed. And
Page 47.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's sorry.
And of the 1,600 acres, I think every field is listed highly erodible land. Is that correct on that, Curtis?
Probably.
Pretty much all the land, and so, I'm trying to get in my mind, if it's highly erodible, what makes it prime farmland?
Prime farmland is usually tied into the soil type.
So type,
The soil type. So if
Even-
this is a class 1, class 2 land, it's probably prime because it's easy to develop. Erosion is pretty well controlled because it's not on steep slopes. It's everything that you want in ag production. You see this as prime farmland.
Yeah, I remember.
Very
one-
little restrictions.
Yeah, I remember one of the parts of the definition is how much slope the land has. And then like farmland of statewide importance is land that has like all but one or two of everything that makes prime farmland. I don't remember what the
But if you look at
definition
the soil map that you got, just look at your class 1 and class 2 land, and that's your prime farmland. Anything over class 2, you usually go in the same
but
way.
it's even still rated highly erodible.
It still could be, because if you don't put the right tillage practices in, it's still eroded.
I mean, but it's already printed up when we go on the map. Each field, is always that way, and we're doing cover crops, and so it's kind of rotating, so.
And on page 47, there's a map where all green is either prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance. It doesn't tell you definition, but it shows you where it all is.
Yes. Go ahead, Bill.
Below 6% is prime farmland of slope. 6 to 12% is statewide importance. And in all cases, it can't be waterlogged. So if you've got something flat in the bottom of a creek, it's still not. But if it's less than 6%, the problem in Mason County is because of all our ridges, you got below 6% on the ridge backs, but not on the side slopes.
Yeah, I think the map on page 47 is effectively a contour map.
You have to remember, those maps are generalized. They're not specific, they're not site specific. That's why they call it general. If you want to get site specific, you need somebody to classify. On site.
Somebody what? Survey.
Classify on site. Because like Bill said, it could drop off where they just drew a line for a map.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the FEMA flood maps.
Yes.
They touch your property, but they kind of don't know exactly where, which part of your property is actually within a floodplain, which is necessary. And they're always updating those maps.
Mr. Chairman, if you think the commission is ready or nearing readiness to take a vote, I have some proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law, if you'd like to hear.
Yes, I do.
Findings of fact. The notice requirements of KRS Chapter 100 and 424 were complied with. Written notice of the public hearing occurring on September the 3rd, 2025, having been provided to the public in general by publication in the Ledger and newspaper, as evidenced by the documents submitted to the record by administrative officials of the Board. That the City of Maysville and the Mason County Fiscal Court jointly hired the Community and Economic Development Initiative of Kentucky, hereinafter CEDIC, but now formerly known as Blueprint Kentucky, affiliated with the University of Kentucky, to assist in the comprehensive plan update process. This group had prior experience with other communities similar to Maysville and Mason County as they went through their own comprehensive plan update process. That the comprehensive plan for Maysville and Mason County was last updated and adopted in December 2016. The coronavirus pandemic and the involved and extremely locally significant process of regulating solar energy systems delayed implementation of the current comprehensive plan update process. The comprehensive plan updating process emphasized community engagement by numerous public meetings and town halls at various locations in the county at various stages of the process. Community input was sought for comprehensive plan themes, goals, and objectives, and again for input on goals, objectives, and strategies as developed and revised by the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, subcommittees, and CDIC. Additionally, public input and engagement was sought through a survey that was available in written form at 5 different locations spread throughout the county or online through the Comprehensive Plan Update page on the City of Maysville's webpage. That the City of Maysville had a page dedicated to the Comprehensive Plan Update process and all aspects of same on its website throughout the process, and that the final draft of the updated Comprehensive Plan was available for public viewing at that location. That the Commission kept abreast of the update process by discussing same at multiple regular meetings from late 2022 through the public hearing. The Commission approved steering committee members, subsequently removed certain members at following meetings for various reasons, and also approved comprehensive plan themes. That the proposed update to the comprehensive plan incorporates input obtained from the public as part of the comprehensive plan update process. That the Commission conducted a public hearing on Wednesday, September the 3rd, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. at the Mason County Public Library to accommodate expected large attendance from the public and to receive comment on the final draft of the updated comprehensive plan. That in the months leading up to the public hearing on the updated comprehensive plan, word spread throughout the community that Mason County was receiving consideration for placement of a data center. Much like the consideration of solar energy systems, concern about a potential data center have dominated recent public discourse. Chairman David Reed, Administrative Official George Larger, and Michael Clark, Counsel for the Commission, clarified at the outset of the public hearing on September 3rd that the hearing would address the proposed update to the comprehensive plan only, that no application for a data center had been placed before the Commission at the time of the public hearing, and that specific regulation regarding or any map amendment pertaining to any potential data center would occur in due course. The public would have an opportunity to provide input regarding either at the resulting and required public hearing once such a request is received. Without amendment of the current ordinance or map amendment to accommodate same, no data center would be possible in Mason County. Over 100 members of the public attended the public hearing. In anticipation of same, the Commission adopted public hearing procedures that would limit the amount of time available to individual speakers to 3 minutes and require the use of sign-up sheets. Most members of the public who signed up to speak declined to do so when their names were called. The majority who did speak stated their concerns regarding loss of prime agricultural land and that same should be protected, concern over potential environmental and societal costs resulting from a potential data center, and that any potential data center should be heavily scrutinized and appropriately regulated. The Commission adjourned the public hearing and requested copies of minutes from same, copies of written submissions made by the public, including a specific revision to the proposed update to the comprehensive plan provided by We Are Mason County, in preparation of a staff report by Administrative Official George Larger discussing said written submissions. The Commission discussed the comments received at the public hearing, the written submissions, and the staff report of Administrative Official George Larger, and made edits to the proposed update to the comprehensive plan in accordance with same. Conclusions of law. That the Mason County Joint Planning Commission is empowered and required by KRS Chapter 100 to conduct a public hearing regarding the adoption of the updated comprehensive plan. That pursuant to KRS Chapter 100, the Mason County Joint Planning Commission is required to submit a proposed update to the comprehensive plan to the Mason County Fiscal Court and the Maysville City Commission for approval and adoption by their respective legislative bodies. So if you like all that, I propose that one of you make a motion to adopt these findings of fact, recommending adoption of the updated comprehensive plan.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, go.
So I'm assuming that's with the one part of the one amendment?
Correct.
Yes.
For staff report.
And that incorporates Michael's findings of fact.
Do you want to make this part of the record?
Probably not a bad idea. Just remove any question.
Staff report? So why don't we do that first before we, so we'll keep, I'm not an expert in Robert's Rules of Order, we've got a first and a second. Can we do it afterwards? I think that's fine. All right, so voice vote. So this is to recommend the amendments from my staff report to adopt, recommend adoption of the plan for legislative bodies. John Hutchins.
Yes.
John Best.
Yes.
Kirby Rosser.
Yes.
Lindsey Phillips.
Yes.
Gerald Woods.
Yes.
Rick Lawrence.
Yes.
Michael Parker.
Yes.
All right. And we also need a motion to adopt, to enter, make my staff report a matter of record.
So moved.
Support. We'll give John.
Yeah.
I think we can just do a quick vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any other business? If not, need a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion.
Okay? Second. All those in favor say aye.